A lot of great speaking sessions so far. So to wrap up our next session, we're going to have a key figure in the Magento community. So Vitaliy has been with the community for over a decade now, having been with Magento in the past. He's contributed to not only the code for Magento 1 and 2, but also training and learning. So give it up for Vitaliy.
Hey, hello. So my name is Vitaliy Golomoziy. I am an architect from Bemeir, and today we're going to talk about CosmicSting and the recent security crisis that we all, I think, experienced. So we will start with talking about CosmicSting attack in general, and why it was so bad, and start with some history, how the crisis unrolled. On June 11th, Adobe released a fix for a certain security issue, and it assigns the lowest priority, like severity rating 3, for this problem. And it's worth saying that the problem was known a while ago, like almost a year ago. It was like circulating in different circles that such thing is possible, but nobody really paid much attention to it. The crisis really started unfolding in June of this year. On June 18, Sansec, a leading security provider and leading security company in the field, noted that 75% of stores haven't been patched with this newly discovered vulnerability, and they warned about mass exploitation of this CosmicSting vulnerability. On June 23rd, Space Wasp, who discovered CosmicSting, published details of the vulnerability. And Sansec, on the same day, discovered that attack is unrolling, and it's unrolling in the wild, and it has really a large scale. The possibility to exploit vulnerability can be automated, as they describe, and it is possible to scan the whole internet and just hack websites at scale. It doesn't require concentrated efforts to hack one particular website. You can just scan everything and hack everybody who is not patched. So it's really, really bad. On June 26, another user published details, and first exploit actually appears on GitHub. This is when things become even worse, like much worse than it was before. Sansec issued a note that saying, if you do not patch in 72 hours, consider your site hacked. And probably that was not very far from reality. So they noticed and they fixed a widespread scanning of the internet and attempts to hack all Magento websites across the whole community, the whole ecosystem. On June 26, Adobe increased severity from 3 to 2, and released another patch, standalone patch. On July 8th, Adobe increased severity to 1 as a critical, and by that time, probably everybody who didn't patch already hacked. And later, on July 12th, Sansec again observes mass attack and hacking of high-profile Magento commerce stores, household brands, and so on. The crisis unwrapped in this going forward, and one of the latest milestones was hacking of a Cisco website based on Sansec report of September 4th. So this attack was really, really bad. So what's going on? Let's try to figure it out. So what the issue itself, how it works? Let's start to figure out. So it's a combination of three things. First is a certain feature of XML protocol called external entity features, which technically allows reading arbitrary file from your file system and sending it to arbitrary server with a certainly maliciously crafted XML. So it's not designed by that, so the purpose was a little different, but this is possible. So XML parser, like simple XML, can read pretty much any file and send it pretty much to any server. You can see 2 lines of code. which show how approximately how it looks like. The real attack and the real code is a little bit more sophisticated. You can find exploit and all details on the internet. It's like a long article which explains how to exploit it, very interesting one. But it's something like that. So if you include if you manage to get this piece of XML inside Magento and get it parsed by Magento, what will happen? It will read whatever file on your file system and send it to whatever remote server you have, remote server of attacker, basically. So this is first thing. Second thing is actually how you can get it parsed. So it relies on two features of Magento, like on the way how JSON is deserialized, so that if you have object inside object inside object, Magento will unwrap it and create objects and objects and objects. And the third thing is the way how Magento REST API processing parameters. So if you're familiar, and I think everybody familiar with the way how Magento REST API works, let me actually go to the next slide. It works like this. So you have a REST API call, and you send some payload. And what Magento does, it takes this payload and generates an object, like data object usually, with all the data. And the way how Magento generates this data object is very flexible, as everything Magento does, but probably a way too permissive. So what's going on? For example, if you look into this API request, like post customer address, the controller, the file which processes, the service file which processing this request, expects a certain data object, like customer data object, customer address data object. Customer address has some fields in it, like region and other fields, whatever. So what Magento does, it looks into data object, it looks into this description of the object, it looks into your payload, and if it finds the field, it creates an object and populates this field. So good, so far so good. If Magento doesn't find the field from your payload in the object, unfortunately, it doesn't give up. So it looks forward and it checks whether there is a setter. So you may have like something and value, and there could be no something field on the data object. So Magento will check whether it set something. And if so, it will set whatever you specify in that field. It will call the setter. But the worst thing that Magento doesn't give up still, if it doesn't find setter, it looks whether it's a parameter in a constructor. And this is a real disaster. So if it finds a parameter in constructor and it finds a field which corresponds to the name in constructor, it will create this value and pass it into constructor. And if a constructor has an object, it will treat whatever the value of the field as an object and will instantiate another object. So this is how you can exploit. And one of the field here is data. Like pretty much every object in Magento has data. So it's just one-way bet. So you can instantiate objects and objects and objects, and it's a recursive process. So it takes a field in your payload. It checks whether it's a constructor field like that. And if it's so, it will try to create an object and set it to constructor. And then it goes again and again this process. So the question is, can we take some of public Magento API, look into the classes that process it, and see if they have some objects in their constructors which lead to another objects in their constructors, which lead to another objects in their constructors, so that at the end of the day it will parse whatever arbitrary XML you send it to it. And answer is yes. It was not that difficult to find it, like three or four levels deep. Usual attack starts from estimate shipping method API call. It doesn't matter what ID you send. It doesn't have to be correct ID at all. It could be whatever garbage you like. What matters is this API call. What matters is a payload that you send. So you can craft multiple nested objects and come to the totals collector. And totals collector has source data constructor parameter which will parse XML using simple XMLs. So if you create your malicious crafted XML string and you get to a total collector, you get through this chain of API, a chain of constructors, objects and constructors in API calls. You get it parsed, and this is basically how this exploitation works. And it's not as difficult. Actually, you can download and exploit and use it yourself. So it's not something extremely difficult. And then let's say a few words about actually, well, okay, you execute arbitrary string, so what's next? Is it a big deal or not? And unfortunately, it is a big deal. So say you have an ability to read whatever file from your Magento file system. If it's normally, if it's good hosting with all the protection measures, you can read database password, but you cannot do much about it because usually you cannot connect to database from outside. You can read ATC password there, but all modern instances don't allow you to SSH without a key, SSH key or so. So what you can do is with ability to read files. Okay, you can see what's in different folders, but how you can actually exploit it. Unfortunately, there is a way to exploit it in a very bad way. So you can read env.xml, and env.xml has encryption key. With encryption key, you can generate JWT token, with which you get full access to API. So basically, after reading env.php and after stealing this encryption key, effectively what happens, you get full access to Magento API, and it's pretty much the same as admin access. It's not exactly the same, but it's pretty much the same. So you can create things, you can modify, you can change the records in database, you can do everything, pretty much everything that you can do in Magento admin panel. And one of the vectors of attack, the most popular was to inject something in CMS block, which will inject something on every page. And thus you can inject your malicious JavaScript on every page. And it can do whatever. It can steal an identity of your customer. It can steal credit card. It can steal journey. It can enable all type of fraud schemes. Like all the worst thing you can imagine may happen. Unfortunately, this is not the only story, because in the same time I discovered a couple of other issues, like iconv library vulnerability and its Linux library, which used in Magento for is like general library which used for image processing. And if pair it with CosmicSting, it is theoretically possible to get full access to your system, like to arbitrary code execution. Sansec doesn't find any proven record that it's happening, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening. And icon is not the only one. It was later discovered another issue of the sort, which Synex or something like that, which gives you similar possibility. Again, there is no exploit that you can use, like for CosmicSting. For CosmicSting, there is an exploit. You can download it and you can use it and you can see it. It's easy. For those things, there is no clear exploit. It's just a theoretical path, but there is a theoretical possibility that you can actually get full access, like arbitrary code execution on your server, not just reading files, which is much worse. So you can put some malicious code on your server. You can do spam. You can do all things you can imagine. So it could be really bad. It's not easy to exploit, and basically you need to patch iconv. So it just if it's a regular, normal, professional, hosters, they will patch all the Linux library timely. But if not, then there is a theoretical possibility, like to get full control over your system, and it's really bad. And what makes it so bad and so severe that it's automatable. So you can create a script and you can run it, scan all internet, and just hack all sites, no matter Magento. No, you can send these payloads, to every URL you have in your database, to every IP address, and you will eventually end up with a long list of hacked websites in which you can do many different malicious things. So this is really bad crisis, arguably one of the worst crises ever in our Magento ecosystem. Now. What is the remedy? What do we do? Okay, as it happens, Adobe published a patch, and then it published another patch, and then it published another patch, which will fix another patch. So things like that. But what to do? So what Sansec recommends? They say, first of all, apply patches. Like this is what we do always. We should apply security patches. This is fine. It could be isolated patch, or it could be upgrade to the latest version. I think it was if you speak about 2.4.6, it was 2.4.6 P7, as far as I remember. If it's 2.4.7, it was P1 or P2. I don't remember exact version, but just upgrade to the latest version. Second, Sansec said, well, you can upgrade to the latest version, but attacker still has your encryption key and still has access to your system. So just upgrading is not enough. Like the damage is done already, and it's still they still have access to your API. Hopefully on the API, right, not the whole server. So Sansec developed a module, very simple module. What it does, it verifies then whatever JWT token is used, it will only use the latest encryption key. So you can just add another encryption key, and even if you keep previously compromised encryption key, attacker cannot actually exploit it because the module will ensure that only last key is using. So if you patch and you add another key, then it's supposed to help. But in general, the very core recommendation from Sansec was to rotate encryption key. So basically, you need to replace your encryption key with something else. Yeah. Right? Yes. So simple, like a piece of cake. You just patch your site and rotate your encryption key. There is a button in admin path. That's what exactly what I was told. When I saw it, I was a little anxious, right? I had very bad apprehension. But I was told, there is a button, just click it, and it will rotate encryption key. And I was like, oh, yes. So Magento does have a function to rotate encryption keys. There is really a button, and you really click it, and it's supposed to do that exact thing. The only thing that it doesn't, at least at that moment of time. I don't know, maybe now Magento fixed it. So what exactly Magento is doing, you can see in this, not sure it's very readable piece of code, but this is a code which actually rotates encryption key. So what it does, it looks, so first of all, you can see where it looks. You see this bold, 2 bold lines, re-encrypt system configuration and re-encrypt create card numbers. Like from this code, we can see that everything else, like Magento doesn't care. But it's only half of the problem because it doesn't really re-encrypt all system configuration value. It re-encrypts some. If you look deeper in the code, you will see how it fetches value to which to re-encrypt, and it's possible that it will miss some values, and it does miss some values. And it's not all the end of the story because it does not delete an old key. So it keeps your old compromised key, it adds another key, and it re-encrypts some values in some tables. So this is basically what happened. I don't know, maybe they fixed already, but at that moment of time, this was the native behavior. It's actually not what we really need, right? So now let's think how we can actually fix it, how it has to be fixed, actually, in the ideal world. So where do we have encrypted data? First of all, it's core config data, right? So it's configuration values. We have encrypted passwords. We have encrypted secrets. We have keys, SSH keys, whatever. It's all in core config data. Payment table, it has credit card numbers. Fortunately, hopefully nobody is using full credit card numbers these days. It may also have encrypted the last 4 digits. In earlier versions, in new versions, I think it doesn't encrypt them, and it's not really a very big secret if somebody steals your last 4 digits. But still, it's another table to look at. And Magento does look in those 2 tables. But there are more, like consumer and token, OAuth consumer and token. These are tables which contain secrets for your integration. So if you go in admin panel, create integration, and integrate Magento with other third-party services which call Magento using Magento REST API, and there are plenty of such services, like many services like that. The secret which is used in that API communication is encrypted and stored in these 2 tables. Like there are 2 secrets. So if you miss it, you basically break all your integrations which use Magento API, which call Magento. So those are very important. And then the last one is like whatever else, right? Because technically you can encrypt whatever you like and put it whenever you want. You can put it in any table, you can put it in custom table, you can put it in product attribute. Like why would you do that? But you can, right? So anywhere in Magento database could be encrypted values, and if you fail to re-encrypt them, you will lose these values effectively. All right, and there are some extensions, some third-party extensions which actually do encrypt fields, like payment extensions. They encrypt some data, and it could be your custom code. So it's you cannot really say what needs to be re-encrypted. Like everything needs to be re-encrypted. You need to scan the whole database and see which values are encrypted and re-encrypt them. So even what Magento did at that moment of time in their core functionality was insufficient, even if it works like it should. All right, so it's much bigger problem. And if you think about it, like how you're going to do this, it's kind of a problem, right? So you don't know what to do. You don't know which values are encrypted. There is no track or record of which record, whoever encrypted, in the whole history of the project. So it's a challenge. It's really a challenge. So in order to see, before we move on, there is one interesting question. What is not encrypted in Magento, which people think is encrypted? And what is not encrypted are passwords. So Magento does not encrypt passwords. Magento hash passwords with one-way hashing algorithm. So what we saw after when we saw some solutions from community, and I will talk about it in a second, that some solutions would try to re-encrypt passwords, which is like arguably a good thing because you harden your security. Nobody can log in with these passwords anymore, so everybody will have to reset passwords. But probably was not an intention, right? So I saw people try to re-encrypt admin user table and customer entity table, trying to re-encrypt passwords. The funny thing is that those two tables do have encrypted values. They are not passwords, but RP tokens, tokens that are used for reset password. And it's not a big deal if you lose them. You can always go and click reset password again. But if you speak about entirety and like if we want to do a good job and completely re-encrypt everything, we still have to look into those tables as well, even so it's not the highest importance ever, probably. OK, how we can figure out which fields are encrypted? Fortunately, there is a way. The way how Magento encrypted fields look like, they look like that in very strange string, but it's a very distinct pattern, which actually enables a solution. Because if there was not such pattern, if it was just base 64 encoded string, there's no way you can you can re-encrypt it at all. It could be whatever, base 64 encrypted encoded. So Magento fortunately follows the pattern. So every encrypted string starts with a digit, then semicolon, another digit, semicolon, and then it could be either base 64 encrypted string, or it could be two strings separated by semicolon. So the format is very distinct. If you go and look for everything, we start with digit, semicolon, digit, semicolon. It's pretty much like likely an encrypted string. So what does it mean? So first number in that cipher, like cipher, is a number of encryption key. Magento allows to have multiple encryption key out of the box. It's a little weird way how you put it. You have to put it in one string separated by spaces, not like multiple PHP values in array, but it does allow it out of the box. So you may have multiple keys, and you can encrypt multiple fields with multiple keys. So it's possible that you will have first digit something different from 0. You can have 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, whatever. It is theoretically possible. It probably never happens unless you explicitly do it, but this is possible. Second is algorithm. And it's usually 1, 2, or 3. So one is blowfish, 2 is encrypt. The both are legacy algorithms that are not used and not recommended to use anymore. And 3, sodium, is a modern encryption algorithm that Magento is using. So normally encrypted string in a relatively fresh or modern Magento instance would be like 0, semicolon, 3, semicolon, and then base 64 encoded string. It is possible that will be, instead of 3, you will see 2. It is very unlikely you will see 1. It's really, really old one. But this is what it looks like. And then base 64 encoded string is needed because every encryption algorithm, it's byte-wise operation. So it will produce raw bytes. You cannot write them in database. It will break internal structure of MySQL. So they are all base 64 encoded. So this dictates us what solution could be like. You just go through all database, you scan all tables, all fields, all values, you look for the pattern, and then you decrypt and re-encrypt. So this is how you solve it. Fortunately, what we saw very fast response from community. Literally within a few days, like June 26th was the date when things got really, really bad because exploit was published, and Sansec said you have 72 hours to patch, or you think your website is compromised. And then you have also to rotate encryption key, because without it, it doesn't make much sense. They will still keep access to your data. Sansec modules was released a little later. So community managed to provide multiple solutions to rotation key. I will emphasize 2 of them. My favorite one is from Bemeir, because I created it. So what it does, it scans all tables in database, supports legacy algorithms, and it has some features. It allows you to not modify database, but create a SQL script which will upgrade database and change all the re-encrypted fields. And it also allows you to create an SQL script which will revert it back. So you can roll back and you can play with this back and forth. And our script was created as a standalone script which you can run. It doesn't require Magento, it doesn't have to be run in the context of Magento. Other solution from Luke Rogers is another great solution. It scans also the whole database. It parses gzip. It's packaged as Magento comment. It has it's nicely written. My script was really, really raw. I did it in rush, in one day. The solution from Luke has one other feature that it handles image caches. For some reason, nobody knows why. Magento uses encryption key to create caches for images. And so if you change encryption key, eventually all image caches have to be regenerated, and it could be a problem for some websites. There could be more solutions. I'm not aware about all of them, but usually other solutions that I saw, they were deficient in one way or another, like trying to re-encrypt passwords or things like that. And aftermath, so what did we learn from this experience? So first of all, we live in a new reality. In a new reality, when upgrades, and especially security patches, have to be executed and applied within hours, not weeks like before. Some companies would take months to apply patches, but like a few days to weeks is a reasonable time. Scale and severity of attack grow so high that the whole, now we're talking about attacks on the whole ecosystem. Like it was unseen before. Previously, it was attacks that can exploit that some website could be hacked. Now we're talking about attacks that can like hack everybody. And this is a reality in which we have to live and to which we have to adopt. We have to plan our procedures, our development, our deployment, our communication with customers, our techniques and everything, just to take it into account. It could be that first of all, you have to think about security. No matter what your plan for next sprint could be like, but today you may need to give up everything and start updating. This is just reality in which you live. And finally, what I wanted to emphasize, that Magento community actually demonstrated ability to very quickly address the problem and react to the crisis in a timely manner, and it's really, really exciting. It was great experience to work with people, debug the scripts, because we got a lot of feedback. Everybody, we communicated our ideas, we improved it, and it was great. And community demonstrated resilience and ability, to quickly react and address very difficult situations, and arguably the worst crisis, security crisis in our Magento history. Thank you for attention.
All right, Vitaliy, thank you so much. Just great hearing about the learnings, the experience, and that only really comes from having that tenure and being in the community for so long. And it was really great to see the community come together to help solve something and really, really help for the long term. With that said, it is lunchtime now. If you want to ask Vitaliy any questions or anything like that, meet him in the lobby. But Vitaliy, great hearing from you. It was a great session. Thank you.
Thank you.